Should you wait to retire together? One of you left a comment that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. He said, I'll be 65 in December. My wife will be 60 in October. I'd like to retire early next year. The problem is she'll still be working. We'll still be getting up at 5:30 every morning. We'll still be tied to her job. Should I just keep working until we can both retire at the same time? And then he said something that told me he already understands more than most people do. The dollar piece is easy, he said. We need to look at this past the money. And he's right. And today we're going to do exactly that because staggered retirement, where one spouse retires before the other, is one of the most common and least talked about transitions in retirement planning. And it can either strengthen your marriage or quietly start to pull it apart, depending on whether you design it or just let it happen. If conversations like this are useful to you, please subscribe. I like to go deep on things that the spreadsheets just don't capture. First, let's normalize this. Most couples don't retire at the same time. Research shows that roughly 62% of couples stagger their retirement. It's actually more common than retiring together. So if you're dealing with this question, you are not in unusual territory. You're in the majority. The reasons vary: age gaps, different career timelines, health insurance needs, one spouse loving their work while the other is done. Sometimes one person is ready and the other isn't even close. But here's what I've learned, both personally and from working with clients. The financial decision is usually the simpler part. The hard part is what happens to the relationship when two people who've been running on the same schedule for decades are suddenly living in two different realities under the same roof. Now let's talk about that alarm clock because our commenter nailed it. When one of you retires and the other doesn't, your daily rhythms split. The retired spouse might start sleeping later, staying up later, having lunch with friends on a Tuesday, living life at a new pace. The working spouse is still on the job treadmill, still commuting, still dealing with deadlines, still exhausted at 6 p.m. And this is where the friction can start. Not because anyone is doing anything wrong, of course, but because you're suddenly living in two different chapters of life in the same house. The retired spouse might feel guilty for relaxing while their partner works, or restless because they can't fully step into their new life when the household is still anchored to a work schedule. Or maybe that spouse feels lonely because the social world they had at work is gone and their partner isn't available to fill that gap. The working spouse might be resentful, not in a dramatic way, more like a low hum. It must be nice becomes an inside thought that never quite gets said out loud. Or they feel pressure. If you're retired, does that mean I have to hurry up and get there too? One researcher who studied hundreds of couples in this situation found that personality differences and preferences that were always there, morning person versus night owl, introvert versus extrovert, planner versus spontaneous, suddenly have room to surface because one person has unstructured time for the first time in their adult life. None of this is a reason not to stagger your retirements. It is, however, a reason to design the stagger instead of just falling into it. The real question isn't when, it's what does a Tuesday look like? So here's the framework I like to use when I think about this, and it comes from my 3 pillars: prosperity, purpose, and play. Most couples having the should we retire together conversation are focused entirely on prosperity. Can we afford it? When do we claim Social Security? What happens to health insurance? Those questions matter a lot, and we'll get to those, but they're the wrong starting point. The right starting point is this: Each of you separately answer this question. What does a Tuesday look like for you when you're retired? Not a vacation Tuesday, not a holiday, a regular, nothing special Tuesday in your retired life. What time do you get up? What are you doing at 10 a.m.? Who are you having lunch with? What gives you energy in the afternoon? What does your evening look like? Now compare your answers. If one of you says, I'm on the golf course by 8 a.m., meeting friends for lunch, and I want to travel twice a month. And the other says, I'm still going to the office until I'm 62 and coming home tired. You don't have a retirement timing problem. You have a life design alignment problem. And no spreadsheet is going to fix that. Here's what I've seen happen, and I've experienced a version of this myself. The spouse who retires first often hits what I call the purpose gap. The first 2 weeks feel like vacation. The first 2 months feel like freedom. And somewhere around month 3 or 4, a quiet question shows up. Now what? Your identity for decades was built around your work, your routine, your social life, your sense of contribution. All of this was structured by the job. When that disappears and your spouse is still immersed in theirs, you can start to feel a little unmoored. This is especially true, and the research backs this up, for men who retire before their wives. Women tend to have stronger social networks outside of work. Men often find that their social life existed in their work life, and when the work goes away, the social life goes with it. So if you're the one retiring first, the most important thing you can do is not wait until retirement to figure out what fills your days. Start building that structure now. Volunteer commitments, a part-time project, a regular fitness routine, a creative pursuit, a community you belong to. Don't retire from your job, retire into something. And if you're the one who's still working, understand that your spouse's adjustment isn't laziness and it isn't a vacation. It's a genuine identity transition, and they need space and grace to figure it out. There's a resentment trap we need to talk about. Let's be honest about resentment because it shows up in almost every staggered retirement if you don't address it head on. The working spouse sees the retired spouse reading at 10 a.m. and thinks, I wish that were me. The retired spouse sees the working spouse too tired for dinner conversation and thinks, I didn't retire to sit alone every night. And here's the one no one talks about: household expectations. Once one person is home all day, there's often an unspoken assumption that they'll pick up more chores around the house. The research shows that retired spouses do take on more household responsibilities, but the division rarely feels equal to both people. The fix isn't a chore chart. The fix is a conversation, ideally before the retirement happens, about what each person expects the daily reality to look like. What does the retired spouse owe the household? What does the working spouse owe the relationship? How do you protect couple time when your schedules no longer naturally overlap? These aren't fun conversations, but they're a lot less painful than the slow buildup of unspoken resentment. Now let's talk about money, because money matters. Let's give the prosperity pillar its due because our commenter said the dollar piece is easy, and for him it might be. But for many couples, there are some real strategic considerations. First, health insurance. If the retiring spouse is 65, they're eligible for Medicare. That simplifies things enormously. But if they're under 65, you need a plan. The working spouse's employer plan may cover both of you. If not, you're looking probably at the ACA marketplace for coverage. And as I covered in another video, that means managing your modified adjusted gross income carefully to keep your subsidies. Second, Social Security timing. When one spouse keeps working, it gives the other spouse the ability to delay claiming. Every year you delay past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by 8% each year. For a couple with an age gap, staggering retirement can be one of the smartest Social Security strategies there is. The older spouse delays while the younger spouse's income covers expenses. Third, continued retirement contributions. The working spouse can keep contributing to their 401k or IRA, including catch-up contributions after age 50. That's money still growing tax advantage while only one of you draws down on your savings. Fourth, and this connects back to our Roth conversion video, when one spouse retires and household income drops, you may suddenly have room for Roth conversions at a lower tax bracket. That gap year or gap years between one spouse retiring and the other joining them can be a tax planning gold mine. So the money piece isn't just, can we afford it? It's, how do we use this transition strategically? Now back to our commenter. Let's go back to the question that started all of this. He's turning 65, she's turning 60. He wants to retire. She'll still be working. Should he wait? Here's what I'd say. Don't sacrifice years of your life for symmetry. If you're financially ready and emotionally ready, the answer isn't to keep punching a clock so your schedules match. The answer is to design the in-between. Have the Tuesday conversation. Build your purpose structure before you leave. Talk honestly about what resentment might look like and how you'd handle it. Use the financial gap strategically. Social Security timing, Roth conversions, health insurance planning, and give each other permission to be in different chapters of life for a while. Because here's the thing about chapters. They end. She or he will join you. And when they do, you'll both be better prepared for what comes next because one of you already blazed the trail. Now let's talk about the design idea. Retirement isn't just a date on a calendar. It's the date that you start your retirement, yes, but retirement itself involves a transition. And for couples, it's often two transitions happening on two different timelines. The couples who thrive in retirement aren't the ones who retired on the same day. They're the ones who designed the gap instead of just enduring it. If you and your spouse are navigating this right now, or if this is coming up for you in the next few years, I want to hear from you. Please drop a comment and tell me, are you planning to retire together or stagger? And what's the part that worries you the most? I read every single comment, and your comment might just become the next video. I'll see you in the next one.